Chapter 1. The Ambush. Liam Carter tapped a sequence of commands into his ship's navigation console, his eyes glued to the dim, swirling clouds of Veldra 4 below. The moon was veiled in perpetual twilight, its dense atmosphere refracting the faint light of its sun into an eerie kaleidoscope of oranges and greens. To most, the sight might be haunting and unwelcoming reminder of its desolation, but to Liam, it was a beacon. This wasn't his first time stepping onto an unexplored celestial body, but Veldra 4 wasn't just another entry in his travel logs. This mission was different. The comm system crackled to life. "Carter, you sure about this?" The voice of Arlen, Liam's mission coordinator, filtered through the static. "We've lost 2 teams already. There's something down there, and it's not friendly." Liam smirked. "Isn't that why you hired me?" He adjusted the straps of his armored vest and leaned back in his chair. "If I were scared off by rumors, I'd be sitting behind a desk like you." Arlen grunted. "Suit yourself. Just don't come crying for an extraction if things go south." The line went dead, leaving only the rhythmic hum of the ship's engine. Liam checked his gear one last time. Plasma rifle, reinforced combat boots, and a utility belt stocked with tools for survival. Satisfied, he stood, stretching his limbs as the autopilot guided the ship toward the surface. The landing zone was a clearing in the middle of a dense jungle, its coordinates provided by the last team to make contact before disappearing. As the ship's ramp hissed open, Liam was greeted by a blast of humid air, heavy with the scents of alien flora. Bioluminescent plants pulsed faintly in the twilight, casting the jungle in an otherworldly glow. He stepped down cautiously, his boots sinking slightly into the damp soil. "All right, Veldra," he muttered to himself, activating the scanner on his wrist. "Let's see what you're hiding." The scanner hummed, displaying a stream of data on the small screen. Atmospheric composition, temperature, and energy signatures. Everything seemed normal, yet Liam couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The jungle was alive with sound-distant growls, chirps, and the rustle of leaves, but there was an underlying silence that set his nerves on edge. As he moved deeper into the jungle, he noticed signs of the missing teams. A broken helmet lay half-buried in the mud, its visor cracked. Nearby, a tattered map fluttered weakly in the breeze, its edges singed as if exposed to extreme heat. Liam knelt to examine the ground, his trained eyes scanning for footprints. There were tracks human boots mixed with something else. Something larger. "Great," he muttered, rising to his feet. "Looks like I'm not alone." The deeper he ventured, the stranger the jungle became. The plants seemed to respond to his presence, their glowing tendrils swaying toward him as he passed. At one point, he stumbled upon a pool of liquid that shimmered with iridescent colors. It wasn't water, its surface was too thick, too viscous. He scanned it with his wrist device, but the results were inconclusive. Liam decided not to linger. After an hour of trekking, he found the first trap. It was subtle, almost invisible, a tripwire made of an organic material that blended perfectly with the surrounding foliage. Liam crouched, carefully examining the setup. The wire led to a weighted mechanism concealed beneath a layer of leaves. Whatever it was designed to do, it wasn't meant to kill. The trap was precise, deliberate. Not exactly a predator's handiwork, he mused, cutting the wire with his knife. "This is intelligent." He continued on, his senses heightened. The traps became more frequent, each one more intricate than the last. Snares made of silken fibers, pits covered with deceptive layers of vegetation, and pressure plates that triggered nets to launch upward. Liam disarmed as many as he could, his mind racing with questions. Who or what was setting these? As the sun dipped lower, the jungle seemed to come alive with a new intensity. The glowing plants brightened, their light reflecting off the faint mist that had begun to settle. Liam's every step was careful, his plasma rifle held at the ready. Yet despite his caution, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being herded. It happened so fast that he barely had time to react. One moment, he was stepping over a cluster of roots. The next, a hidden mechanism activated beneath his foot. A net shot upward, ensnaring him in silken fibers and hoisting him several feet into the air. His rifle clattered to the ground below, just out of reach. "Damn it!" Liam growled, struggling against the net. The fibers were impossibly strong, their texture smooth yet unyielding. He reached for the knife on his belt, but before he could cut himself free, he heard it a soft, melodic whisper. The sound was unlike anything he'd ever heard. It was a language, though he couldn't understand the words. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, until figures began to emerge from the shadows. They were tall, their movements fluid and graceful. Their skin glowed faintly in the dim light, and their eyes bright shades of purple and green seemed to pierce the darkness. Liam's breath caught as he realized what they were. Isari, he muttered under his breath. The Isari were a race of enigmatic alien women, renowned for their beauty and grace. Liam had seen them before at galactic trade summits, on holoscreens, but they were always distant, untouchable. To see them here, in the flesh, was both mesmerizing and unsettling. One of them stepped forward, her silver hair catching the faint light. She was taller than the others, her presence commanding. Her eyes, a vivid amethyst, locked onto Liam with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "You're different from the others," she said, her voice smooth yet edged with steel. "He might survive." Liam glared at her, his defiance masking the unease he felt. "Who are you? What do you want?" The woman tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I am Tyani, leader of this sanctuary. And you, human, are our guest." "Guest?" Liam spat. "Doesn't feel very hospitable to me." Tyani's smile widened. "You'll understand soon enough." Before Liam could respond, another Isari raised a small device. A sharp, hissing sound filled the air, and his vision blurred. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Tyani's piercing gaze. Chapter 2. The Secret of Veldra 4. Liam awoke to the sensation of warmth enveloping him, coupled with a faint floral aroma that made the air feel thicker than it should. His head throbbed as if he'd been hit with a sledgehammer, and it took considerable effort to open his eyes. When he did, the sight that greeted him was unlike anything he had ever seen. The room he found himself in was glowing, but not from any visible light source. Instead, the walls, ceiling, and even the floor pulsed softly with bioluminescent patterns that shifted in hues of green, gold, and blue. The patterns seemed alive, almost like veins under translucent skin, constantly moving and changing. It gave the room an organic feel, as though it wasn't constructed but had grown naturally into its current form. He groaned, pushing himself into a seated position. The surface beneath him was soft, yet firm enough to support his weight. It felt warm, pulsating faintly beneath his touch, as if he were lying on a living organism. He glanced down and realized his gear was gone: his boots, utility belt, and even his armored vest. Instead, he wore a simple tunic-like garment that felt unnervingly similar to the material of the net that had captured him. "Where the hell am I?" Liam muttered, running a hand through his hair. He instinctively reached for his wrist scanner, only to curse when he realized it had been taken as well. As he swung his legs over the edge of the bed-like surface, the door to the room slid open with a soft hiss. The motion was silent, smooth, and gave no indication of mechanical gears. Another organic feature, he noted. Standing in the doorway was Tyani, her tall frame silhouetted against the glowing corridor behind her. Her amethyst eyes fixed on Liam with a calm intensity. "You're awake," she said, her voice devoid of surprise. It was as if she had been waiting for this exact moment. Liam stood slowly, his muscles stiff but functional. He kept his posture defensive, his eyes narrowing. "You've got about 5 seconds to tell me where I am and what's going on." Tyani raised an eyebrow, the faintest hint of amusement flickering across her face. "You're in the sanctuary of the Isari. As for what's going on, you'll find out soon enough. Come." She turned without waiting for a response, her iridescent robe catching the light as she moved. Liam hesitated, his instinct screaming at him to be cautious, but he knew he had little choice. Without his gear, he was at a severe disadvantage, and the only way to get answers was to follow her. The corridor was just as alien as the room he'd woken up in. The walls, though glowing with the same bioluminescent patterns, seemed to ripple as they walked past, reacting to their presence. The air hummed faintly, a low, almost imperceptible vibration that Liam could feel in his bones. He glanced around, noting the lack of seams or joints. It was as if the entire structure was a single, living entity. Tyani walked ahead of him, her steps silent but purposeful. "You're wondering what this place is," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "I'll show you." They emerged into a massive chamber, and Liam's breath caught in his throat. The room was vast, its ceiling soaring so high that it disappeared into darkness. The walls glowed brighter here, their bioluminescent patterns forming intricate designs that seemed to tell a story. Pools of glowing liquid dotted the floor, connected by streams that defied gravity, flowing upward into the ceiling. The air was thick with energy, almost electric, and Liam felt a strange pull in his chest, as if the room itself was alive. Dozens of Isari were gathered here, their forms sleek and graceful as they moved about the chamber. Some were working at consoles that seemed to grow out of the floor, their fingers dancing over glowing symbols. Others were tending to the pools, their hands skimming the surface of the liquid in what appeared to be a ritualistic manner. All of them paused when Tayani entered, their luminous eyes turning toward Liam with curiosity and something else, something he couldn't quite place. "This is the heart of our sanctuary," Tayani said, gesturing to the chamber. "The last haven of the Isari." Liam crossed his arms, his gaze scanning the room. "Sanctuary from what?" Tayani's expression darkened, the glow in her eyes dimming slightly. "From extinction." The weight of the word hung in the air, and Liam frowned, his mind racing. The Isari were one of the most renowned species in the galaxy, their presence felt in every major city and trade hub. Known for their beauty, grace, and intelligence, they were often employed as diplomats, entertainers, and negotiators. Yet here they were, hidden away on a desolate moon. Speaking of extinction, Tayani stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the glowing pools. "The galaxy knows us as a race of perfection, elegant, beautiful, and desirable. But that image is a lie. We were created, engineered by the galactic elite to be exactly what they wanted. We were never meant to be a people, only a product." Liam felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard rumors about genetic engineering programs among the wealthy and powerful, but he had never imagined the scale of what Tayani was describing. "Created," he echoed. "You mean, you're not natural?" Tayani turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "We are the result of experiment splicing, modifications, and enhancements. Our creators designed us to be perfect, but they also ensured we would never become independent. They made us sterile, dependent on their intervention to reproduce." Liam's stomach churned. "And now? Our creators are gone," Tayani said simply. "Their empires fell, their experiments abandoned. We were left to fend for ourselves, but without the means to sustain our population, our numbers began to dwindle. That is why we came here, to find a way to survive." Liam's mind raced, piecing together the implications of her words. "So, you're saying you can't reproduce on your own? That's why you've been luring people here?" Tayani nodded, her gaze unwavering. "Yes, but it's not just about reproduction. The process requires a bond, one that is taxing. Not everyone is strong enough to survive it." Liam felt his blood run cold. "And the ones who don't survive? What happens to them?" Tayani's expression softened, though her voice remained steady. "We do not harm them intentionally. But the bonding process is not something we can control. Nature is unforgiving." Before Liam could respond, a loud alarm echoed through the chamber, breaking the heavy silence. The Isari tensed, their eyes shifting toward the entrance. Tayani's jaw tightened, and she turned to one of the consoles, her fingers flying over the glowing symbols. "What's happening?" Liam demanded, his voice rising over the noise. Tayani's gaze remained fixed on the console. "It seems we've been found." The ground shook violently, and the distant sound of explosions reached their ears. Liam instinctively stepped back, his heart pounding. "Found by who?" he asked. "Not who," Tayani said, her voice grim. "What?" The doors to the chamber burst open, and a swarm of creatures poured in, their bodies covered in chitinous armor and their eyes glowing with a sickly green light. They let out piercing shrieks, their movements swift and erratic as they closed in on the Isari. Liam didn't wait for instructions. He grabbed a weapon from a nearby console and took aim, firing at the nearest creature. The plasma bolt struck its shell, but it barely flinched, charging toward him with razor-sharp claws. Tayani appeared beside him, her own weapon blazing. "They're predators," she shouted over the chaos. They've been hunting us for centuries. Liam gritted his teeth, dodging the creature's attack and firing again. This time, the bolt struck its exposed underbelly, and it collapsed with a screech. But for every creature they killed, more seemed to pour in, their numbers overwhelming. "Tyani," Liam called, backing toward the center of the chamber. "We need a plan." She nodded, her gaze sharp. "Follow me. There's one chance we have, but it won't be easy." With no time to argue, Liam followed her through the chaos, the sounds of battle fading as they disappeared into the sanctuary's depths. Chapter 3. The Invasion. Liam followed Tyani through the twisting corridors of the sanctuary, the hum of its energy growing louder with each step. The walls, previously glowing in calming patterns, now pulsed in chaotic bursts of red and orange, reflecting the urgency of the situation. Behind them, the sounds of battle echoed shrieks of the invaders, the crackling of Isari weapons, and the occasional scream of pain. The air was thick with tension, and though Liam didn't fully trust Tyani or her people, he had no choice but to stick with her. She seemed to know exactly where they were going. "What are those things?" Liam asked, his voice strained as they turned a corner. "Predators," Tyani replied, her tone clipped. "We call them the Drakiar. They are ancient, relentless, and highly adaptive. They hunt by scent, tracking the unique biochemistry of the Isari. They've been trying to breach our sanctuary for decades." "Looks like they've succeeded," Liam said, gripping the alien weapon he had taken earlier. Tyani shot him a sharp look. "Because you led them here." Liam stopped mid-stride, anger flashing across his face. "Excuse me? I didn't bring those things. Your traps didn't exactly send a do not enter message either." Tyani hesitated, her expression softening slightly. "Perhaps not directly, but your arrival likely triggered an energy signature they could follow. Humans are disruptive. Your physiology doesn't blend with the environment." Before Liam could argue further, they arrived at a large, circular chamber. At its center stood a massive device, glowing faintly with the same bioluminescent energy as the walls. It was a generator, though unlike anything Liam had ever seen. Organic and mechanical elements fused together seamlessly, forming a structure that seemed alive. "This is the core of our sanctuary," Tyani said, gesturing to the device. "It powers our defenses, our life support systems, and our cloaking field. Without it, we are exposed." Liam approached the generator, examining it closely. The device hummed faintly, but it was clear that it wasn't operating at full capacity. Panels flickered erratically, and sections of its outer shell were cracked or scorched. "What's wrong with it?" Liam asked. Tyani's expression was grim. "It's old. It hasn't been fully operational for decades. We've done our best to maintain it, but we lack the resources and knowledge to repair it." Liam frowned, running a hand over the surface of the generator. "And you think I can fix this?" "You're human," Tyani said simply. "Your species has a talent for improvisation, for making things work under pressure. If anyone can bring it back online, it's you." Liam let out a bitter laugh. "No pressure then?" Before he could begin, the chamber trembled violently. The walls rippled, and a deafening roar echoed through the corridors. The Drakiar were getting closer. "We don't have much time," Tyani said, her voice tense. "If they reach this chamber, it's over." Liam nodded, his mind already racing. He didn't fully understand the technology, but his training as a scout and engineer had taught him how to think on his feet. He opened a panel on the side of the generator, revealing a complex network of glowing cables and crystalline components. Sparks flew as he adjusted the connections, trying to stabilize the device. "What do you need?" Tyani asked, standing close behind him. "Keep them off me," Liam said, not looking up. "This is going to take a minute." Tyani nodded and turned to face the corridor. A group of Isari warriors arrived moments later, their weapons at the ready. Tyani barked orders in their native tongue, and they formed a defensive line at the entrance to the chamber. Liam worked as quickly as he could, his hands moving with practiced precision. He rerouted power, bypassed damaged circuits, and realigned the crystalline core. The generator groaned in protest, its energy fluctuating wildly. "Come on," Liam muttered, sweat dripping down his face. "Don't give up on me now." A sudden shriek caused him to glance over his shoulder. One of the Drakiar had broken through the defensive line, its massive, insect-like body barreling toward the generator. Its claws gleamed in the dim light, and its multiple eyes glowed with a malevolent green light. "Liam!" Tyanni shouted, raising her weapon. She fired, the plasma bolt striking the creature's side, but it barely slowed down. Liam scrambled to his feet, grabbing the alien weapon he had taken earlier. He fired at the Drakkar, aiming for its vulnerable underbelly. The creature screeched in pain, collapsing to the ground, but more were already pouring into the chamber. "We can't hold them off much longer," Tyanni yelled, firing another shot. "I just need a little more time." Liam shouted back, returning to the generator. He worked frantically, ignoring the chaos around him. The sounds of battle faded into the background as he focused on the task at hand. Finally, with a triumphant cry, he reconnected the final circuit. The generator roared to life, its energy surging through the chamber in a wave of light. The effect was immediate. The walls of the sanctuary glowed brighter than ever, and a deep, resonant hum filled the air. The Drakkar recoiled, their shrieks turning to cries of pain as the energy overwhelmed them. One by one, they retreated, fleeing back into the corridors. Liam slumped against the generator, his chest heaving. The Isari warriors let out a collective sigh of relief, lowering their weapons. "You did it," Tyanni said, her voice filled with awe. She approached Liam, her expression softer than he had ever seen it. "You saved us." Liam managed a weak smile. "Yeah, well, don't expect me to do it again anytime soon." Chapter 4. The Alliance. The silence that followed the retreat of the Drakkar was heavy, a stark contrast to the chaos of moments before. Liam leaned heavily against the generator, his breath shallow as the adrenaline coursing through his body began to fade. Around him, the Isari warriors moved methodically, securing the chamber and checking on their wounded. The sanctuary's bioluminescent walls pulsed steadily now, their vibrant glow a testament to the revived energy coursing through the ancient structure. Tyanni approached Liam, her usually composed demeanor softening. There was relief in her luminous amethyst eyes, though it was tempered by exhaustion. "You've saved us, Liam," she said, her voice carrying an uncharacteristic warmth. "Without you, we wouldn't have stood a chance." Liam smirked, though his weariness was evident. "Don't give me too much credit. I've never worked on something like that before. Half of what I did was improvisation." Tyanni shook her head. "Improvisation or not, it worked. That's more than anyone else has managed in decades." He straightened slightly, wincing at the stiffness in his back. "So, what now? You've got your defenses back up, but those things will be back, won't they?" Tyanni's expression darkened. "The Drakkar are relentless. They've been hunting us for generations. They're drawn to our biochemistry. Our pheromones act as a beacon for them. They will return, but with the sanctuary's systems restored, we have a fighting chance." Liam frowned. "You've been dealing with this for generations? Why not call for help? Surely the galaxy has resources to deal with creatures like that." Tyanni let out a bitter laugh. "Help? From the galaxy that abandoned us? From the same people who created us as tools and discarded us when we were no longer useful? No, Liam, we are alone." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of centuries of struggle. Liam studied her for a moment, his frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "Then why bring outsiders here? Why set those traps? If you're so isolated, why take the risk?" Tyanni's gaze hardened, though there was no malice in her tone. "Because we had no choice. Our kind cannot survive without external help, Liam. You saw the state of our population. Our numbers dwindle every year. The traps are a last resort, a desperate attempt to find those who might help us, even if they don't know it yet." A difficult truth. After the warriors secured the chamber and began repairing damaged systems, Tyanni led Liam through a series of winding corridors to a quieter, more secluded part of the sanctuary. The air here was cooler, the walls glowing softly in shades of green and blue. The energy in this section of the sanctuary felt calmer, almost soothing, as if it were designed to ease tension. The room they entered was small and circular, with a low table at its center surrounded by cushions made of the same organic material that seemed to comprise much of the sanctuary's infrastructure. Tyanni gestured for Liam to sit, taking a seat across from him. She clasped her hands together, her expression thoughtful. "You've earned the truth," she began, her voice steady. No more half-answers. About time, Liam muttered, settling into a cushion. Despite his exhaustion, his curiosity burned brighter than ever. Start with why you need humans, or anyone, for that matter. Tyani hesitated, her amethyst eyes locking onto his. The Isari cannot reproduce without external help. Our creators designed us that way to ensure control over our population. They wanted us to be dependent, subservient. For centuries, they maintained strict control over the process, providing us with what we needed to survive. But when their empire fell, they left us to fend for ourselves. Liam leaned forward, his brow furrowed. So you're saying, you're sterile? Not exactly, Tyani replied. We can reproduce, but the process requires genetic compatibility with other species. The Isari were designed to bond with a partner during reproduction, a process that is both physical and mental. It's deeply taxing, and many potential partners do not survive. Liam's stomach churned. What happens to the ones who don't survive? Tyani's gaze dropped, her expression pained. We don't harm them intentionally. The process is natural, but it demands resilience, both physical and psychological. Most species cannot handle it. Humans, however, are different. Different how? Liam asked, his voice low. Your physiology is uniquely adaptable, Tyani explained. Humans have a resilience that is unmatched by any species we've encountered. Your ability to endure hardship, to improvise, to survive, it's extraordinary. That's why we sought you out. Liam leaned back, running a hand through his hair. So, what? You've been luring humans here to breed with them? Tyani's expression hardened. We don't lure anyone, Liam. The traps are designed to test potential candidates. We only bring those who prove themselves capable. You're here because you passed those tests. Liam let out a bitter laugh. Great. So I'm some kind of guinea pig now? No, Tyani said firmly. You're a lifeline. The proposal. Tyani rose from her seat, pacing the room as she spoke. You've seen what we're up against. The Dracaar are relentless, but they're only one of our problems. Without a sustainable population, the Isari will vanish within a generation. We need your help, Liam, not just to fight, but to survive. And what exactly does that involve? Liam asked, his tone cautious. Tyani stopped, turning to face him. It means forming a bond with one of us. A true bond. It's not just reproduction, it's a merging of minds and spirits. It's intimate. Liam felt his face flush, though he tried to mask his discomfort. That's a lot to ask of someone you just met. I know, Tyani said softly. But you're not just anyone, Liam. You've proven yourself today. You saved our sanctuary, and for that, you have our trust. Before Liam could respond, the door slid open, and another Isari entered. She was younger, with vibrant green eyes and a nervous energy. She bowed slightly to Tyani before turning to Liam. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, her voice trembling slightly, but we've detected another wave of Dracaar approaching. This one is larger. Tyani's jaw tightened. How long do we have? Less than an hour, the young Isari replied. Our defenses are holding, but they won't withstand another direct assault. Liam stood, his exhaustion replaced by a surge of determination. What do you need me to do? Tyani turned to him, her expression a mixture of gratitude and resolve. Help us prepare. If we can hold them off one last time, we'll have the breathing room we need to secure our future. The final stand. The next hour was a blur of activity as the Isari prepared for the impending attack. Liam worked alongside them, his knowledge of tactics and improvisation proving invaluable. He reinforced barricades, optimized the sanctuary's weapon systems, and even managed to repair a damaged energy turret. When the Dracaar finally breached the outer defenses, the sanctuary erupted into chaos. The Isari fought with grace and precision, their weapons cutting through the invaders with deadly efficiency. Liam held his own, using a plasma rifle to pick off the creatures as they swarmed through the corridors. Despite the overwhelming odds, the Isari's resilience and Liam's ingenuity proved to be the deciding factor. With the sanctuary's defenses fully operational, they managed to repel the attack, driving the Dracaar back into the wilderness. A new beginning. As the dust settled, the surviving Isari gathered in the main chamber. Their numbers were few, but their spirits were high. For the first time in years, they had hope. Tyanni approached Liam, her expression soft. You've done more for us than I could have ever hoped. I won't ask for anything more, but if you choose to stay, you would be welcome here. Liam looked around at the gathered Isari, their luminous eyes filled with gratitude. He had come to Veldra 4 as an outsider, but now, he felt like he belonged. I'll stay, he said finally. For now. Tyanni smiled, a rare warmth in her expression. Thank you, Liam, for everything. As the Isari began to rebuild, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something far greater. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he was part of something meaningful, a chance to make a difference in a galaxy that had long since forgotten the value of hope.